Hola muchachos, ¿qué tal? Buenos días. Aquí tienen el horario para hoy, jueves, el 24 de octubre. Learning targets for today. We have two of them to tackle: to distinguish nouns in both their gender and number, and to count from 0 to 100 in Espanol. Your warm-up for today is exercise 1 on page 41 of the textbook. Taking a quick look at that. As we looked at last class, the notes on how to identify nouns as being singular or plural. For activity 1 on page 41, take a look at these nouns. If the nouns are singular, make them plural. If they're plural, make them singular. And how do we do that? If you take a look at your notes from last class, we discussed how, just like in English, nouns in Spanish can identify people, places, things, animals, inanimate objects, abstract ideas. However, different from English, Spanish nouns have this concept of gender, in that all nouns in Spanish are considered to be either masculine or feminine. And then just like in English, Spanish nouns also are identified by number meaning that they can be either singular or plural. Nouns in Spanish can be identified in two ways: gender, whether they're masculine or feminine, regardless if it's a living or non-living thing. And they can also be identified by number, whether the noun is singular or plural. Common endings for living things for masculine and feminine nouns we saw here on page 38. Talked about how men are inherently masculine and women are inherently feminine in terms of the gender of those two nouns. Page 39 talks about non-living things. Common endings for masculine and feminine nouns, typically O for masculine and A for feminine, although there are a few exceptions that we looked at. And then in terms of how to make nouns plural, very similar to English, adding an S to nouns that end in a vowel. For example, los chicos, los diarios, los problemas. If a noun ends in a consonant, meaning B, C, D, F, G, H, etc., you're going to add ES to nouns that end in a consonant, such as nacionalidad, países, lápices, and lápiz is an example of a noun that ends in Z. To make that noun plural, change the Z to a Z first and then add ES. We looked at definite articles in Spanish being el, los for masculine, singular and plural. For feminine, singular and plural, the articles would be la and las. You can see the relationship there between the article and the ending of the word in terms of its gender and number. And then indefinite articles in English would be a, an, or some. All of these definite articles in English would translate to the. A, an, or some indefinite articles in Spanish would be un and unos for masculine, singular, plural, and una and unas for feminine, singular, plural. So armed with all that information, how would we make these nouns singular to plural or plural to singular? Let's do the first three together. El número is masculine, singular. To make it masculine plural, we would add an S since it ends in a vowel. And then the masculine plural version, or the masculine plural definite article used here, would be los. El número would change to los números. Un diario is using a indefinite article that is masculine singular. Again, we want to go from singular to plural. So un would change to unos, and diario would change to diarios. Unos diarios. Estudiante is an example of a noun that could be either masculine or feminine, because students are both genders, right? So la estudiante would change to las estudiantes. Las estudiantes. And that is your warm-up, Activity 1. Activity 2 is what we'll do next. If I'm not mistaken, we have that in the agenda, do we not? We sure do. Little individual practice for Activity 2. And that asks you to identify the noun first. And if you look at the back of the chapter, there's a glossary that provides all the vocabulary. I also gave you a handout with all the vocabulary as well. A glossary that was given to you last week. This is, and we want to make these plural, if I'm not mistaken. No, we want to make these singular if they appear as singular, or plural if they appear as plural. So for example, there are 3 computers there. That's a plural noun, computadoras. And then provide both the definite being el, la, los, or las. In this case, las computadoras, because computadoras is feminine plural, and that's the feminine plural definite article. The indefinite feminine plural article would be unas. So provide both definite and indefinite articles that go along with these nouns, and I'll give the nouns to you now. This is maleta, maleta, mujeres, mujeres, which is a group of women, cuadernos, cuadernos, diario, diario, hombres, hombres, which is a group of men, lápices, 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 chico, or muchacho, young man, muchacho, muchacho. And then since there are 2 buses here, autobuses, autobuses, autobuses. Which definite and indefinite articles would go in front of these nouns? This would be la and una maleta, la and una maleta. Number 2 would be las or unas mujeres, las or unas mujeres. Number 3 would be los or unos cuadernos, los or unos cuadernos. And then we'll do one more together. Diario would be el or un. El or un diario. All right, what we have next are some notes on 0 through 30. I say in the agenda, though, 0 through 100, and that's, I believe we went over at the beginning of the year when we were talking about numbers and when we played bingo, or maybe we only got up to 50. I can't quite recall, but nonetheless, you have the numbers 0 through 100 here in Canvas. Matter of fact, you have the numbers 0 to 1,000 here in Canvas. But you're only responsible to go up to 100, and we've already done at the very least 0 through 30. That I know for sure. Maybe we got to 50. Again, I can't quite recall. But how we count all the way up to 100, we start with the ones place. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then the teens are probably the trickiest set of numbers to do in Spanish. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. And then 21 through 29 are going to be all together one word, the tens place, 20, combined with the ones place, 1 through 9. 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. And then once we get to 30, 30 all the way up to 99, or 31 rather, all the way up to 99, in between the tens place and the ones place we put E, the conjunction E, and, right, which you can see here. So 31 would be 31. 32 would be 32. 33, as you can see here, would be 33. 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39. And that's the same for the other tens places. 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, etc. All the way up to 99, which would be 90 y 9. All the way up to 100, all the way up to 1000. That's how the tens and the ones places are counted in Spanish. So, armed with that information, doing a little practice, we have activities 1, 2, and 3. Follow the pattern, writing out the missing numbers in Spanish. Number 1 is going by odds. 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, 15, 17, 19, etc. Right? Going by twos, odds. Number 2, by evens. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, etc. Number 3, going by threes. Number 4, going by twos downward, 5s downward, and 4s downward. Activity 2. Solve these math problems with a partner. 2 más 15 son 17. 20 menos, which is less or subtract. 20 menos 1 son 19. 5 más 7 son 12. Facilito, muy fácil. And then finally, activity 3, how many are there of each of these? I skipped that. Apologies. We use the expression I in a statement and in the form of a question to indicate or ask about how many there is or are of something, or there isn't, no I of something. I means there is or there are, or is there or are there in the form of a question, or when negated, there isn't or there aren't. You can see in the questions here how I is used with cuánto. Cuánto meaning how much or how many. How much with a non-count noun. How many with nouns that can be counted. You can put a number in front of those nouns. So, for activity 3, answer the question. ¿Cuántos hay? How many are there of the following items? For example, ¿cuántas maletas hay? I is always going to go at the beginning to say there is or there are, followed by the number, in this case tres, followed by the noun, expressed either in the singular form or in the plural form, depending upon how many of each item there are. ¿Cuántos lápices hay? For number 1, ¿cuántos lápices hay? How many pencils are there? Looks like 10 in here, 10 in there. Hay 20, right? 10 plus 10. Hay 20 lápices. Remember, lápiz to make it plural. Change the Z to a C, and then add ES. Número 2. ¿Cuántas mapas hay? How many maps are there? Hay una. Just one. And remember, 1, the ending 1, the number 1 changes to match the gender of the noun that it's modifying. So mapa is, feminine. So we're going to change uno. Instead of saying 1, we're going to say una, a map, right? Hay una mapa. This would be a diario, looks like, a diary. ¿Cuántos diarios hay? How many diaries are there? Hay un diario. Hay un diario. And that does it for our practice in the textbook with the numbers 0 through 100. And again, you have that in Canvas as well. And some pronunciation practice, some other references if you need it. Your homework, is this handout on nouns and numbers. I'm on page 4 in this handout. Disregard Part B. You are not responsible for Part B. Part B is in reference to time, which we will look at toward the middle and end of next week. So you do not need to do Part B, as we've not gone over time yet. Part A you are responsible for. Simple math, just like how we were doing in the textbook. Figure out the answer of the math problem. Write the number in numerical form. Find the number as it's said in Spanish, and circle it in the word search. So for example, number 1, 7 times 8 would be 56. 56 in Spanish would be 56. This entire horizontal row here. So write the number numerically, find the number alphabetically in romanization form. Number 2, missing number in the pattern would be 30. 30 in Spanish is treinta. Treinta. And so on and so forth. Back of the paper, write the correct definite article, el or la, or both. Write both if the noun itself could be either masculine or feminine. Bolígrafo is masculine singular. We know that based upon the ending of the noun, ending in O. So number 1 would be el bolígrafo. Lápiz is also masculine singular. We know that because it ends in a consonant, el lápiz. Sala de clases has multiple words, just like hoja de papel does too. Disregard any word that comes after de that's serving as an adjective. We don't choose articles based on adjectives. We choose articles based upon the noun that come before them, or come after them rather. Sala is feminine singular. We know it's feminine singular because it ends in a, la sala. Finally, part B, identify the noun. Write the noun here, and then the number, it's provided to you in Spanish, you're going to write it in its numerical form. For example, no hay un libro, there's not just one book. Hay 25. There are 25. No hay un bolígrafo. There's not just one pen. Hay 67. 67. No hay una hoja de papel. There's not just one piece of paper. Hay 100. There are 100.